Ready.
Okay. 39-year-old Charles Morgan, a.k.a. Chuck Morgan, was a successful businessman, president of his own escrow company in Tucson, Arizona. He was also a potential witness in a land fraud case involving a known organized crime boss. And on March 22nd, 1977, he left his Tucson, Arizona home to drive both of his daughters to school, and after he dropped them off, he vanished. 3 days later, he showed back up at his house, and according to his wife Ruth, he was missing a shoe, had a plastic handcuff around one ankle, had his hands tied together with a plastic zip tie. He could not speak, but with a pen and paper, he wrote down that he had been kidnapped and tortured, and he wrote that he had a hallucinogenic drug that had been painted on his throat, and he claimed that this drug would drive him insane or kill him if he ingested it. This is Country Roads Creeps. We're back in sync now.
We did it!
Tell me why. Anyway.
Oh my goodness. As you were reading that, this started to sound familiar to me. I think I've heard this story on another podcast, and I want to say it was on Morbid, but I'm not 100% sure, but I don't remember the details of it, so I'm excited for you to tell it to me anyway.
Great. Let's just cancel this now. Ann already knows.
I think it was on Morbid.
So,
I don't remember.
this is probably one of the more mysterious, unsolved, I guess you call it true crime. It's one of the more mysterious true crime unsolved cases I've ever come across. So it's kind of, and it's got a lot of weird to it. So it's not just like a guy was murdered and they never found his murderer.
Right.
You know? So there's a lot of conspiracy and odd and weird and nothing about this is normal at all. So yeah. Do you have anything that you want to say before we start?
I don't this time because last week we recorded an episode that's not going to come out until the summer because I forgot that we were like putting it in the bank for my maternity leave. So I gave all of my timely life updates on an episode that no one's going to hear for 2 more months. So no, I don't have anything to say this time around.
Oh, look, now somebody else has their phone ringing in the middle of the show.
I'm sorry.
Who is it?
It's Dirk.
Hey, Dirk.
I'll tell him we're recording. He'll understand.
I got him some ziti today from the Olive Garden. We had Olive Garden today. And I shared a bunch of Olive Garden posts to our story today. I love sharing Olive Garden stories.
Yeah. We want to get sponsored by Olive Garden at some point.
Yeah. Shout us out, Olive Garden. Hit us up. And literally not even for money, just give us free Alfredo.
Or like a hoodie with Olive Garden's logo on it or something. Send us some stickers.
Give me a hat.
Yeah.
Want a hat and maybe like I'll get an Olive Garden tattoo. I'll get a tattoo of a breadstick. If Olive Garden sponsors us. So maybe they'll hear that.
I have to move my mic really quick.
Oh my gosh, come on.
I was very adjusted and then I leaned back a little bit and now I can't reach it anymore. Okay, I'm good.
Jeez. Competition shooting season started.
Yeah, and you did a good job. Congrats.
Yep. I beat my arch nemesis. Eric Homan is his name. I'm doxing him. His full name, Eric Homan. And last year we went back and forth beating each other for like 4 consecutive competitions. And this time I beat him first try. So get it together. Eric Homan, he sucks now. It was close. It was a close win. So, and then 2 other guys I'm going to dox are Tom Ferris and Tony Boone, who beat me every time and also beat everybody else. So
good job, guys.
No, not good job. a lady got what they call the Matchmeister. Did I tell you that?
What was her name?
Andrea Everetti.
Good job, Andrea.
Everetti, something like that. But she beat everybody by like 3 seconds.
Nice.
So, which in this competition is like a lifetime. Like it's a gigantic amount of time, like a comfortable amount of time to be winning. So, but she won, and she'll get. So the way they do it in this particular foundation league or whatever that we shoot in is the fastest time across all divisions, with the exception of like unlimited, because unlimited you get like literally it's like nothing is disallowed almost. Like as long like if it shoots a thing, then it's like, like shoot what you brought division. And so with the exception of that, where like everybody has like their specialty tuned race guns and stuff, the fastest score overall is what they call Matchmeister. And at some point in the year, they have Glock puts on the Gunny Challenge in Georgia, and they send special invite to the Matchmeisters, and they go and compete in their own Matchmeister division to see who of the fast is the fastest of the fastest of the fast.
Right.
So, and she did really good. So, shout out, Andrea, if you're listening.
Good job. You ready to start?
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, why don't you do this episode? You can read my notes.
Just read your notes. No, thank you. I'm ready to listen.
So, like I said, on March 20... Oh, also, you know what else happened in my life?
What?
I got... my office got switched at work.
Yeah.
So, I don't have a window anymore.
But a bigger office.
Yeah, that's what... I don't care. Everybody at work was like asking me like, how do you like it? Are you mad that they switched? I was like, I don't care. Like I sit at a computer and
you cared enough to bring it up.
Yeah, because you know what? I got used to, the only reason I don't like it is because I got used to my old office.
So you do care a little bit.
And where everything was, and I had like a kind of an L-shaped desk.
It kind of sounds like you care.
Now I have a regular desk. I don't know where everything is. I keep trying to use my mouse. It's not in the mouse spot where my mouse goes.
You'll get used to it.
I know, but now my whole day is messed up because of it.
I'm going to draw you a fake window to hang on your wall. I'm going to give you different scenes that you can switch out.
Yeah, like, what's that thing where you put the goggles on and you hit the button and it like...
A viewfinder? Is that what it was called?
I think so, yeah.
Build that toy? Yeah.
Yeah. So you can give me one of those.
That's really funny.
So, or like one of those picture frames that, the picture frames where you load in a bunch of pictures.
Yeah.
But it's just pictures of outside in different places.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, like I said, March 22nd, 1977, Chuck Morgan, as opposed to Chuck Roast. Chuck Morgan. That's the thing
That's so dumb.
Makes you laugh. Chuck leaves his home as normal to drop off his daughters at school, and he disappeared for 3 days. So he stumbled back home at 2 a.m, and Ruth, his wife, woke up to a thump at the door. I think it was the back door, actually.
Ooh.
She, quote, this is Ruth speaking, Ruth Morgan. I was trying to come up real quick with a joke about Ruth, and there's not one, so.
Keep going.
I almost said Ruth Morgan as opposed to Baby Ruth, one of the worst candy bars of all time. But that would really get some people fired up because they were like, "This is the best one." No, it's not. So anyway, they're like, I like almond joy too. Oh my God, get it together. Anyway, sitting here eating a banana Laffy Taffy, and people are going to be like, "Oh, what?
The worst Laffy Taffy
It's
flavor.
the best.
The worst.
It's the best.
Strawberry is the best.
No.
Yes. I have a question.
Yeah.
Did his daughters get dropped off to school and then he disappeared, or were they also disappeared?
Yeah, they got dropped off at school.
Okay.
So, Ruth, quote, she says, I was in bed and the dog started barking. I got up, went to the door and opened it, and there was Truck. He was missing a shoe, had one plastic handcuff around one ankle, and a set around his hands. When he motioned to his throat and didn't say a word, I asked him, can you talk? Can you write? And he shook his head yes. So I went and got a tablet and a pen, and he wrote that his throat had been painted with a hallucinogenic drug, and the drug could drive him irrevocably insane or destroy his nervous system and kill him. I wanted to call a doctor and the police, but he was adamant that he would be signing a death warrant for the entire family. So I should point out that she says that she got a tablet and a pen. That's not like it's 1977. There's no
it's
iPads.
like a notepad.
Yeah. So
like a legal pad or something.
Yeah.
Just a notepad.
So he asked Ruth to move his car because he didn't want them, quote unquote, them, to know that he had returned home. However, he would not say who, quote unquote, they were. And he also told her not to call the police because it would be put on the lives of them and their family members.
Try again.
Because he told her not to call the police because a hit would be put on the lives of them and their family members. Whew.
You did it.
Man, that Alfredo sauce just goes straight to the brain, doesn't it? So, I got fettuccine for brains. That's what all the wrinkles are. It's just fettuccine noodles.
Ew. That's really gross. I do not like that.
So, sorry.
That was a bad visual.
No, I was about to pick on you and be like, well, it's better than being completely smooth like you are. So, there's just no wrinkles up there at all. Just completely like one big orb.
An egg. I got you good.
Egg for brains. Over easy style.
Oh, remember that old commercial where they had, like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. And it was a fried egg.
Yeah. I also know the commercials where it's like a don't smoke weed commercial and it's the guy who's flat. He's like completely deflated in the couch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I told one of my friends has, you know him, I'm not going to say on the podcast, but has got a broken back. Mm-hmm. And has been fighting with the VA and stuff about repairing the back and everything. But whenever he got his actual surgery done, they gave him these like really, really powerful, they're not just muscle relaxers, muscle skeletal relaxers.
Oh gosh.
And I told him, he took one of those and I was like, that's going to turn you into that guy from that marijuana commercial. Just flat in his chair. And he was like, yeah, I feel that way. He turned into jelly.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we got a little off topic there.
Okay, so for 1 week, Ruth nursed Chuck back to health by feeding him with an eyedropper. Before his voice returned, he began to allude to a secret identity. Any guesses what his identity was?
He was coming up with a secret identity?
Yeah, he has a secret identity.
Oh.
And he's finally telling her about it.
Oh, no, I have no idea.
Oh, okay. He claimed that he worked as an agent for the federal government and he fought against organized crime. And he also claimed that they had taken his treasury identification. And he said that he escaped from his captors near Phoenix's Sky Harbor Airport. Ruth, quote, she says, quote, Ruth says, quote, he wrote, they took my treasury identification. That was the first I've heard of it. Then he told me they had been working for them about 2 or 3 years, and that was it. So he had been like an undercover treasury agent. For some reason, the treasury, excuse me.
Nice.
The treasury.
Right into the mic.
I know. Sorry. The treasury it's where the money gets kept, right?
Yeah.
So, like, but if you're in money crimes or like organized crime, that's not like the treasury. I didn't know had an investigation or like a criminal law enforcement division of it. I just figured that would be under the purview of like the FBI. But like the CIA handles, not the CIA, the Secret Service handles counterfeit money.
Yeah.
That was what they originally were supposed to do. And the CIA is supposed to handle foreign investigations, and the FBI is supposed to handle domestic investigations on criminal stuff. But the Treasury is just, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know that they had a law enforcement wing or whatever.
The more you know.
Anyway, after his kidnapping, Chuck became justifiably paranoid. He started wearing a bulletproof vest and even grew a beard to further mask his identity.
And he hasn't told the police anything at this point?
No. Okay. He started driving his daughters to and from school, and he informed the school that nobody else should be allowed to pick them up. So, was he really a treasury agent fighting organized crime? And who was the people that abducted him?
Are you going to tell me?
Yeah. So in the 70s, the mafia established Arizona as a narcotics pipeline and a haven for money laundering. More than 500 racketeers set up shop there. What made Arizona attractive to crime syndicates was a state law that allowed anybody to buy up land through numbered blind trust accounts, and that meant that they could launder money and it couldn't really be traced. So Chuck had done real estate escrow work for at least one mafia family and possibly helped with the purchase of gold bullion and platinum, which was a little bit more convenient way to launder money. So I guess the way that you launder money would be like you have to funnel it into a business, you know what I'm saying? So like
I learned that on Ozark on Netflix.
Oh yeah, because they have that like big weed operation, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
they used a casino.
Yeah, so casino is good because there's huge amounts of money going in to it, and the house always wins. So it's like,
yeah.
So like, hey, if a guy comes in, like one of your buddies, even you couldn't really trace like, oh, he lost $10 million playing blackjack. Sucks, like, but now it's the casinos, and then he's one of your employees, right? So on the crime part of it, so you're going to cut him a check for working for you.
Right.
So, but anyway, did you know, this is a slightly off topic, but still money laundering. The scene, you ever seen the movie Scarface? Oh my gosh, here we go.
It didn't fall. It just tipped a little bit. No, I haven't.
So in Scarface, there's a portion of the movie where they do kind of like a montage of like him, Tony Montana, being basically like the drug lord that he is. And there's a famous scene of like them taking duffel bags full of money into a bank, and the bank is just doing the money laundering for them.
Oh, nice.
And so I remember seeing it was like a History Channel or Investigation Discovery or something, a documentary one of those channels did a long time ago where they had this FBI guy who had been working undercover for pretty much a similar thing to what Scarface was, where he was like, he was in Miami, I think, and he worked for one of these guys doing the money laundering. He was like, it was exactly like the movie where you just pull duffel bags of cash into the bank and they deal with it.
Wow.
So it's like, like, it's the craziest that you could never do that now, but like, and the bank is taking like, hey, yeah, we'll handle it, but for 10%, and you're taking in like tens of millions of dollars at a time. So, it's like, well, what do they care? They're just making money. So, Anyway. So he's doing escrow work for at least one mafia family, probably more than that. There's a journalist named Don Devereaux. He's going to come up a few different times in this story.
Okay.
He investigated the Chuck Morgan story.
That made me think of Doug Dimmadome.
Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. So, you ever seen the picture of that guy who's on the news and he's wearing a cowboy hat, and I guess that somebody has photoshopped it to look super tall?
Yeah.
And they photoshopped the headline of his name that says Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome.
Yeah.
So
there was some guys on TikTok or Instagram for a while that they had a continuing series of they made a Doug Dimmadome hat, and they just kept making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was like above the roof of their house, and they would walk around their yard with it on. It was so funny.
So Don Devereaux, owner of he wrote a paper. He wrote articles for the newspaper.
Okay.
So didn't really own anything. He owned a car or something, I guess. So quote from Don Devereaux says, he was around the edges of a couple very large organized crime groups in Arizona at that time. It was very easy to get in over your head, and I suspect that over the years, Mr. Morgan was in that kind of situation. He was doing perhaps upwards of $1 billion of escrow work in bullion and platinum. These were transactions that only existed on paper. He was a straight businessman that probably got a little too close to that flame. Which, so end quote. So, $1 billion in 1970s. Like, that's an insane amount of money today.
Yeah.
Inflation has gone, like, over the last 40 years.
An insane amount of money then and now.
Yeah. But, like...
just crazy.
Like, if you have $1 billion now, you could spend, like... I don't know. I mean, I understand, like, people go broke spending money and giving away money all the time. But you have to do, like, a lot every day.
It'd be hard to spend $1 billion. Like that.
Yeah.
$1 billion is hard to conceptualize. It's so much money.
It's 1,000 million. So.
It's so much.
You would have to spend, like, if you spent, like... didn't bring in any more money, which it's going to accrue interest in the bank, but just assume that you had $1 billion, you would have to spend, like, you could spend $1 million a year for the next 1,000 years. Like, that's not like a normal amount of money to have. Shout out the people who have $1 billion. That's today though, but like back in the 70s when it was like, Can you look up the conversion rate to like 1970s billion to today billion?
Yeah. And quickly, while I have this pulled up on my phone, I like those comparisons of how much bigger $1 billion is than $1 million.
Yeah.
So 1 million seconds is about 12 days.
Ooh, I know this one.
1 billion seconds.
I know. Is
about.
Okay, wait. So
we're not going to wait for you to do the math.
No, I know it. 11 years.
32 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 1 trillion seconds is, I think dinosaurs were alive.
What year did you want me to look this up? $1 billion in?
Like 1975.
75.
Yeah. And it's got to be like, let me guess, like 50 years ago, probably 100 billion now today.
$5,805,427,509.
I was close. So,
which is still a vast amount of money.
Yeah. So, anyway, Ruth didn't really know anything about what her husband was doing at work. I guess she just knew that he was an escrow agent, and then later would come to find out that he's supposedly working for the Treasury Department. As an undercover agent for them, but which we'll get into a little bit a little bit later, but she says, quote, Chuck mentioned to me once that there was money laundering going on, but nothing that he himself would be involved in. He told me, the less the girls and you know, the better off you will be, end quote. So, after the kidnapping, Chuck became paranoid, like I said. He was wearing a bulletproof vest, grew a beard to mask his identity, and he started driving his daughters to and from school and informed them that nobody else should be able to pick them up. He didn't want his kidnappers to be able to pick his daughters up. And
yeah, fair enough.
So, cool. 2 months after his first disappearance, guess what happened?
His daughter got picked up by someone they shouldn't.
Chuck, vanished again.
No.
9 days later, Ruth Morgan received a mysterious phone call.
She didn't call the cops?
No.
Holy moly.
An unidentified woman gave her a reference from the Bible. So this is how, ring, 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 ring. Hello. And then the lady says, this mysterious lady says, Ruthie? And Ruth said, yes. And she said, Chuck is all right. Ecclesiastes 12, 1 through 8. And then she hung up. And 2 days later, Chuck's body was discovered.
Dead?
Yeah, his body was discovered. Not him,
Just clarifying.
Yeah, yes, Hannah, he's dead.
That's sad.
His body was found in the desert 30 feet off the highway in the San Juan Springs area. He had been shot once in the back of the head with a bullet from his .357 Magnum, which was lying beside him. No fingerprints were found on it, and gunshot residue was found on his left hand, indicating that he had fired a weapon. The investigators also found a piece of paper with directions to the murder site written in Chuck's handwriting, and a pair of sunglasses which definitely did not belong to him. Also found in the car were several weapons, ammunition, and a CB radio. Strangely, a piece of one of his teeth was found wrapped in a white handkerchief in the back seat. The police made an additional discovery. Chuck had clipped a $2 bill inside his underwear. Written on the bill were 7 Spanish names beginning with the letters A through G, and above them was the notation Ecclesiastes 12, with the Bible verses 1 through 8 marked by arrows drawn on the bill's serial number. This was the same Bible verse that the mysterious female caller had given to Chuck's wife. On the back of the bill, the signers of the Declaration of Independence were numbered 1 through 7, and there was a roughly drawn map. The map led to an area between Tucson and Mexico, the town of Robles Junction and Sala City, both known for smuggling.
That's a lot of information to fit on one bill.
Yeah. Definitely. He had a small handwriting, so.
Are you going to tell us what that Bible verse was?
Would you give me a second? Jeez, it's my show.
I'm asking.
I'm doing it. I got the notes right here.
Okay, well.
Let me make sure I have it in here, because I'm pretty sure I do.
Being an active listener.
Yes, I do. So.
Participating.
Listening ears on, please.
They're on. I'm intrigued. That's why I'm asking follow-up questions.
Jeez, give me a second.
Hey, lady.
Hey, lady. So, despite the unusual evidence, many in the sheriff's department believe that Chuck's death was a suicide. They claimed he had shot himself in the back of the head. I'm sorry.
You're joking. You're joking. Are you being for real?
Yeah, so they...
What?
This is... I would like to take this moment to clarify. This is episode 1 in a series of episodes that I would like to call people who were definitely murdered, but the police said that they were suicided, and it's because somebody rich or somebody in the government said so.
Yeah.
Subtitle:
Be real.
A series of episodes by Shane from Country Roads Creeps. Subtitle: Hey lady. They said he was shot. He shot himself in the back of the head with his own revolver.
Okay.
And
That's horrible. That's so dumb.
So I'm going to get into this a little bit here in a minute, but there's some evidence that might sway you to believe otherwise. So
You don't say.
Ruth says there's no way Chuck would have committed suicide, and if he had contemplated suicide, he would have left a letter for his girls and me. And Don Devereaux also had some doubts. He says, I've never seen in all my years as a journalist a fellow take himself out in the desert wearing a bulletproof vest and shoot himself in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Very succinct quote.
Yep.
So, 2 days after Chuck's death, a woman called the Pima County Sheriff's Department. She said Chuck had come to meet her at a local motel just before he died. The woman called herself Green Eyes. She said she was the same person who had called Chuck's wife, quoting the Bible passage. Green Eyes said that in the motel, Chuck had showed her a briefcase containing thousands of dollars in cash, and he told her that the money would buy him out of the contract that the mob had put on his life. Some investigators also suspect that his death was not a suicide. So, are you ready for more information?
Yes.
Theories go that an organized crime group put the word out that they wanted Chuck dead. And the hitman told Chuck, the hitman that was hired told Chuck, and then Chuck went and got the money to buy off the hitman. And when the two of them met in the desert, the hitman killed Chuck anyway and took his money. Don Devereaux believes that Chuck might not have fully realized who he was involved with. And he says, there is a great likelihood that Mr. Morgan was in fact doing something with the government. I think this was a guy who was extremely naive about a lot of things, and I think somebody blew his cover and he got killed. End quote. Shortly after Chuck's death, his impounded car was broken into while it was in police possession, and around that same time, his office was also ransacked. 3 weeks after his death, 2 men claiming to be FBI agents arrived at the Morgan home. And after his husband's death, Ruth Morgan says about these FBI agents that, so, quote, they opened and closed their identifications very fast. They said they wanted to come in and look through the house. They never said what they were looking for. And to this day, I don't even know what they were looking for. The men, that end quote. Those men,
Alarming.
the FBI agents, tore the house apart looking for something that they apparently never found. Ruth was so upset she didn't write down their names. No one knows for sure if they were really FBI agents. Don Devereaux contacted the FBI to get more information and says, quote, when I made geez, forevermore. That's the loudest candy ever.
Sorry.
Jeez, right into the mic. Just.
No, I leaned away from the mic.
I tell you what.
Otherwise, it would still pick it up that close.
Hannah's eating Nerds. Loudest candy ever.
My bad.
As opposed to like, is there a louder candy than Nerds?
I'm growing a baby. I get a pass to eat whatever candy I want on the podcast.
Fair play.
Thank you.
Got me there.
I'll lean farther away from the mic next time.
Don't even worry about it. Let them know what kind of candy you're eating. So, can't wait till I get to be pregnant. Then I can eat whatever I want on the podcast. Jeez.
All right. Yep. You can be next. You can have the next turn.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm going to Photoshop my own freaking ultrasounds too.
Oh my goodness.
Nothing you can say about it.
Okay.
I'm going to Photoshop all of your ultrasound pictures to have like a mustache. And then replace like all your pictures.
That's really funny.
But like not like a clever Photoshop mustache, like an evil one, like
cartoon evil
the
mustache.
curly evil mustache. Yeah,
That's really funny.
So Don Devereaux made a Freedom of Information Act request. So he says, quote, when I made the Freedom of Information Act request to the FBI, they had never heard of Mr. Morgan, despite the fact that they obviously opened an investigation, despite the fact that the FBI interviewed Mr. Morgan's attorney. They were all over this thing like a blanket for a while, but now they never heard of the guy. He never existed. No card, no file, no nothing. End quote. So if Chuck Morgan was doing undercover work for the government, Don Devereaux believes clues he wrote on the $2 bill might have been an attempt to pass coded messages to the FBI. Quote from Don Devereaux says, I think the $2 bill provided the basis for some kind of a code. What seemed to be missing, however, was the document that the $2 bill would unlock. If he was quietly providing assistance to the U.S. government and monitoring the activities of one or more major organized crime families, then he wasn't a villain. He was a good guy, and they need to know that. End quote. So there's several rumors surrounding the case, including that Chuck was killed because he was involved in illegal activity or was doing secret work for the government, and his death seems just as unexplained as the events leading to it. At the time, the Pena County Sheriff's Department said that Chuck Morgan had been hiding out at a West Side motel for more than a week before he died. An acquaintance told investigators that Morgan was trying to pull together enough cash to buy off, quote-unquote, a contract on his life. The department classified the case as a suicide, said spokeswoman Deputy Don Barkman. However, the county medical examiner's office listed it as an unsolved death. So I've got some suspects for you. You ready?
Yes.
Although Chuck claimed that he was working against organized crime, some believe that he was actually involved with it.
Ooh, plot twist.
During the 1970s, Tucson, along with other cities in Arizona, became a place that the mafia moved to due to its controversial criminal justice system and warm climate.
What more could you ask for?
So, I like that, I do my notes, 4 days in advance. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I put in, little jokes like that.
And you forget.
So I read it, and I was like, that's really funny.
It is funny.
So, anyway, led by former New York Don Joseph Bonanno, more than 500 racketeers moved to Tucson during the 1970s. Their influence led to several gangland-style killings in the area. One of the more famous being the murder of investigative reporter Don Bowles, who I think I'll do a mini on him at some point soon.
Okay.
Might be one of the ones that we released during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is kind of a little bit shorter story than this. So starting in 1973, it appears that Chuck was doing several $1 million of escrow work in bullion and platinum. In reality, there was no bullion or platinum. Instead, the money was moved through several escrow accounts and legitimized. Quote unquote, big air quotes for that one, legitimized.
Okay.
On one occasion, Chuck mentioned to Ruth that the money laundering was occurring in Tucson. However, he claimed that, speaking of, by the way, legitimized is kind of a funny word now because back in 2020 or something like that, the IRS put out a document about stuff that you could claim on your taxes of
mm-hmm.
if you are involved in illegal drug sales, you still have to claim that amount on taxes. And to be fair, the IRS isn't involved in you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess that's one of those things where if somebody does get caught with illegal drugs, they can also tack on as an extra punishment.
Yeah.
And you didn't claim it on your taxes.
That was the famous thing about Al Capone, right? That they could never get him hard on the the alcohol and all the crime and stuff and the murders.
Yeah.
But what they did get him on was lying on his taxes.
Tax fraud, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, on one occasion, Chuck mentioned to Ruth that money laundering was occurring in Tucson, but he claimed that he was not involved with it. And he also... Get it together, jeez.
I didn't do anything.
Okay. He also stated that the less that Ruth and his children knew about the activities, the better it would be for them. So it's been theorized that Chuck Morgan was likely killed by members of organized crime in the Tucson area. It's possible that the mafia family he worked for had him killed because he knew too much. And another theory is that organized crime bosses put the word out that they wanted Chuck dead. So a hitman told Chuck, and then he came up with the money, and then he killed him anyway. So also not mentioned is that Chuck had been seen at several restaurants and motels on the west side of Tucson after his disappearance and before his death. So the second disappearance, but before the first time he died. So not that there's a second time, but I'm just saying.
Right.
So, got some results for you. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
This case is unsolved.
Right.
So, Unsolved Mysteries actually solved the case of, or not solved, they aired the case on TV. And they received a bunch of calls relating to Chuck's death. Don Devereaux, who investigated several of those leads, he learned that Chuck was heavily involved in money laundering activities through the Tucson escrow company. From 1973 to his death in 1977, he was also involved in a large gold and platinum transactions and apparently received large amounts of money from these activities. And some of the money allegedly came from Southeast Asia. Devereaux discovered that Chuck kept duplicate records of illicit transactions. Devereaux now believes that Chuck was killed because he still had those records. So, it is at this point that I am prepared to share with you Ecclesiastes
I forgot about that.
12, 1 through 8. Are you ready?
Yeah, I forgot we were coming back to this.
Ecclesiastes 12, 1 through 8 says, Remember your Creator in the days of your youth before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim, when the doors of the street are closed, and the sound of grinding fades, when the people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint, when the people are afraid of heights and the dangers in the streets, when the almond trees blossom and the grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred, then people go into their eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, everything is meaningless.
What do you make of that?
Well, so the section that everybody says, everybody's like, yeah, this reads, or they say an excerpt of this reads, remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. So I think that part is like a murder thing, right? Like people are made of dust and they return to the ground where they came from, and the spirit returns to God. So they are, it's kind of like a death kind of verse.
Okay.
At the same time, though, have you ever watched Pulp Fiction?
I've seen parts of it. I did not really like it.
Where I love the movie. And Samuel L. Jackson always says, he's like, this is from Ezekiel something or another. Have you ever, do you remember what he said there?
What Samuel L. Jackson said?
Yeah, so he...
No, I haven't really watched the movie that much.
So Pulp Fiction has Samuel L. Jackson in the... as he plays Jules in the movie. And there's a few times in the movie where he cites a Bible verse, Ezekiel 25:17. And do you know what the quote from that is?
No.
So Ezekiel 25:17, he always says, and he says it in the Samuel L. Jackson tone, and I'm not going to do that here because it's too loud, but the path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who, in the name of charity and goodwill, shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And it goes on to say, And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers, and you will know that I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you. So it turns out I don't think that's an actual real quote from the Bible. I think they made it up. It references parts of scripture, but it's not actually it's not the real passage, right? So anyway, this part of the movie, he says it a few times throughout the movie, like when he's about to kill somebody. Well, he explains it to somebody later on and says, he says, I've been saying that for years, and if you ever heard it, that meant a Samuel L. Jackson word that I can't say on the podcast. But basically, he's going to kill you, and you'd be dead right now. I never gave much thought as to what it meant. I just thought it was a cold-blooded thing to say to a MFer before I popped a cap in his behind. But fill that in with Samuel L. Jackson words in movies.
Right.
So yeah. So he is misquoting the Bible, just saying, I thought this was a cool thing to say before you kill somebody. I think part of that is, might be involved in this Ecclesiastes 1-8 thing. I think they're just I think the mafia might be just being like, yeah, this is we're going to add some mystery to, whenever we ransom somebody or something, or before we kill somebody, it's like, this doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really reference too much about the, there's nothing spiritual going on here. You're mafia and you're killing a guy. You just want to scare his family, right? So I think you shouldn't really read too much into it. I think, as Samuel L. Jackson would say, it's just a cold-blooded thing to say to an MFer before you pop a cap in his behind. But,
okay.
Samuel L. Jackson words that we can't say. Oh my God, I shot Marvin in the face. Remember that scene from the movie?
I've said 3 times I didn't really watch it. I saw a little bit of it and didn't like it.
Whatever. It's a really funny scene where they're driving in the car and now I can't even remember the actor's name, super famous actor. But he puts a gun over the back of the seat and he's like, Marvin, you got to have an opinion. And they hit a pothole and he pulls the trigger and shoots him in the face.
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, oh my God, I just shot Marvin in the face.
Yeah, it's not my kind of movie, I don't think.
It's funny. Jeez. So, like I said, Unsolved Mysteries aired the episode on the thing. Don Devereaux investigated a bunch of the calls that came from it, found out that he's involved a lot more than what he led on about the money laundering and buying the bullion and the platinum and all this stuff, right? Well, 3 months after the broadcast, Doug Johnson was found shot to death in his car outside of his Phoenix office. Interestingly enough, he was a guy who worked across the street from Devereaux's office and drove an almost identical car.
Oh, no.
Devereaux now believes that he was supposed to be he who was to be killed instead of Doug. And a year after Doug's murder, Devereaux was contacted by a writer from D.C. named Danny Casolaro. And he agreed.
Why is that name so familiar?
Let me get to it, golly jeez. It's the next sentence.
It's like you don't want me to pay attention. You're punishing me for being invested in this story.
Let me get to it.
All right.
He agreed to share with him information that he had uncovered about Chuck's illegal gold transactions. However, Danny died suspiciously before he received the information, and all 3 cases remain unsolved. Sadly, Chuck's widow, Ruth Morgan, died in 2006. Danny Casolaro is on our list of episodes to do. And it's right next to it is Do Not Look That Up. It's a surprise.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's why it's familiar.
Still don't look it up.
Okay, I won't.
But he's in the thing.
Yeah, on our list of episode ideas. That's funny.
She said, just let me get. Gosh.
All right, if you just want to do this show solo, then say that. If you don't want me here, then just say that.
I like having you here. I wish you would, it's not that you're not, like you're getting ahead of me. I wish you would ask me more irrelevant questions like I do you. Like
off the wall stuff that you don't know the answer to?
Yeah. Yeah. Like ask me stupid questions.
Okay. I'll think of one.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have one yet.
Oh my gosh. See, it comes to me naturally when I ask you something.
Sorry for staying on topic, Shane.
Jeez. No, this is not a show where we stay on topic. They know that now. It's like episode 25.
Well, now I don't want to participate.
Oh my gosh. Get over it. So eat your nerds. Shake them in the mic.
I ate them all.
Oh, yeah. We know you've been chewing them, smacking them, gouging everywhere on this whole episode. That's Hannah over there.
I don't think it's going to pick up except for when I shook it into the mic. I think you just heard it because you're beside me. Because I didn't have it that close to it except for when I shook it on purpose.
I heard it in my headphones. I don't know if it's going to, like with the noise gate and stuff, if it'll actually pick up. So now I'm just going to look like a crazy person.
Yeah, I don't think it will pick up except for when I was shaking it on purpose.
So anyway, Chuck Morgan's wife, died of cancer in 2006, and the couple's 4 daughters maintain that their father was murdered to protect the interests of the corrupt businessmen and politicians. And one of the daughters, Megan is her name, she says, "My father had a lot of information about people here in Tucson that could have been very detrimental. There was a lot of information about politicians, people who are still alive that work in our government. He had that information, and they wanted to silence him." Go ahead.
I have nothing to say now.
Oh, my gosh. That's the end of my notes. So, what do you think?
I think it's a sad story.
Oh, my gosh. Hannah.
It's sad.
Hannah's pregnant and thinks it's sad.
Everything's sad. I feel bad for his family.
Everything is so sad.
And I feel bad for him if he was innocent. I don't really know. But
yeah, so
I think it's kind of wild that he went missing twice and wouldn't let the police be informed.
Yeah.
Or like the people he was working for or whatever.
Yeah.
Crazy that he went missing for 9 days and his family was just like, I guess we'll wait it out.
Yeah. Yeah, Ruth is probably like worried sick.
Yeah.
Like
it's kind of wild.
But anyway, the thing with his revolver, right? So he is found next to his Mercury Cougar or something, whatever that car was that he has. In his underwear with a bulletproof vest on. Which like is like me on a Saturday, so whatever.
Oh my god.
He gets found. They find his revolver, no fingerprints on it, and he shoots himself in the back of the head. Now, I don't know if any of the listeners or you know anything about 357 Magnum, but it's like a pretty nasty round to be shooting at somebody. And fair to say that if you shot yourself in the back of the head with one of those, you really wouldn't be able, in my professional opinion on that particular thing, you wouldn't be able to then wipe the fingerprints off of the gun and then toss it like 30 feet away.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably not doing that with any gun after being shot in the head.
I'm skeptical about that. So
yeah.
I just, and the $2 bill, like, I mean, all of us keep a $2 bill clipped to our underwear, but his had writing on it. Who writes on their $2 bill? Somebody that's been murdered, tell you that much. So, and somebody broke into his car. So this is why I think of the theories that I've listed, what do you think is more plausible?
I really don't know, honestly. I really don't know. This one's just
tell you what
loss.
I think that if it was a guy who they if it was a guy who the mafia wanted dead, they would have just killed him, right?
Yeah.
And nothing would have ever come of it. If the police were investigating it, then maybe the mafia could pay the police off. That's been known to happen before. But is it going to cause like a writer in DC to be murdered and this other guy to have a hit put on his life, this other journalist? Probably not. So my theory is the one where he still has the records. Like he kept a bunch of records of the money laundering and a bunch of records of the mafia families and a bunch of records of maybe some politicians that were involved in that. And for those reasons, so that the politicians don't get in trouble. Let me ask you if this sounds familiar. A guy has a bunch of documents and some, maybe some physical evidence like pictures or video of politicians being involved in illegal activity. And he dies mysteriously and nobody investigates his death and you never hear anything about these records that ever come out. Does that remind you of anything that happened maybe 4 years ago?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, thought so. Mm-hmm. So, listen, I think he probably had these records, the FBI. It could have been either the FBI, who is known to be corrupt, broke into his house to get these records and get rid of them, or it could have been mafia posing as FBI.
Yeah.
Trying to get these records. But
they're plausible.
The government, known to be corrupt. Mafia, known to be slightly less corrupt.
Oh my gosh.
It's a fact. Look it up. The first Google listing that you're going to see is a website. It's a blog written by me. It says mafia, slightly less corrupt than the government.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, for real though, at least with the mafia, you know what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
With the government,
true.
Every 4 years is something different, some other garbage.
Yeah.
So, hot political take from Shane this episode about how corrupt the government is. And then they killed a guy in DC, Danny Casolaro, who, guess what? We're doing the next episode on. I guess the next Shane episode is me. And I'll do Danny Casolaro.
You're going to do that for a regularly scheduled or one for the summer?
The next regularly scheduled episode that I'm going to do is Danny Casolaro.
Okay, so that'll be a month. And
the one that I'm going to do for the scheduled one that we're going to do for Hannah's fishing trip is Don Bowles, who is also involved in this.
Earlier. I forgot.
So, and that one actually might turn out to be a real mini. So, like a real,
like an actual mini that we've always said we're going to do and we never do, and they're always at least 45 minutes.
Yeah, like 30 minutes or less, mini.
We'll see.
So,
probably not.
This one is actually decently short for a full episode. It's only like an hour, so.
That's pretty good.
Talk a little bit more so we can really fill up some time here.
I'm tired.
Yeah, me too. It's been exhausting. I was in Virginia yesterday, and it was, by the way, I wanted to tell you this. This is, people who made it this far get to hear about the scenery that I went to yesterday. So, competition yesterday was in Virginia, in a place called Hurt, Virginia, which, honestly, a town after my own heart. So, laugh. That's a funny joke.
I was yawning, sorry.
Yeah, whatever. Come on. Now, I've been especially mean to you this episode. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say good episode, but you've yelled at me the whole time, so maybe not so good. Thank you for your apology, though.
Medium episode. Anyway, so I went to Hurt, Virginia. And there's a range out there called, I forget what it's called, but Brushy Mountain Gun Club or whatever. So if anybody's in that area and you want they actually have like a really, really nice range out there, like very well set up and everything. They have like skeet ranges and stuff. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if anybody's in that area and would like to join up, then this is the shout out for Brushy Mountain Gun Club or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But the competition I was at was there yesterday. And when you go out there, it's like these long country roads. It's like 3 hours from out here, like Raleigh County. or whatever. And so, but like an hour and a half of that is interstate, and then another hour and a half is just country roads. Like what the heck? It's out there. So I go, and when you're going out there, I guess a lot of that land is owned by like some kind of lumbering company or something, because there's acres and 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 acres of evergreen trees planted.
Cute.
And they're all like different ages. Like some of them look like they're a few years old. Some of them look like they've been there for 10 or 20 years. But the forests, high five, of evergreen trees. And it's very pretty. But also, I have heard that when they do that, it is like bad for the environment somehow if you just plant one kind of tree.
Oh yeah, like there's something with farming about how they have to change what crop they put in which field because it will leach all of one mineral from the soil, and you have to give it time to build back up with a different plant that uses some other kind of nutrient.
Well, yes, for
like
farming,
that.
But I think for trees, I think they just want, like you go in and you cut down a large swath of trees. Well, not all animals live in evergreen trees. And like not all animals get their food from evergreen trees. Like
so like the ones they cleared out were not all evergreen to begin with.
Yeah.
And they just replaced them with all evergreen.
Yeah. So it makes
changing the ecosystem pretty big there.
Yeah. So it's not like a homogeneous ecosystem or whatever you call it. It's like very one specied. So, which I guess is like, so hear me out on this. If you go in like 20 years ago and you cut down a huge forest, like a big swath of forest to build wood things with, and then you think, okay, I have this land, right? So instead of going and cutting down other forests in the future, I'll just plant this land with trees that I want to use later, pine trees or whatever, because all the wood that I need is going to be pine, and then I'll just cut those trees down that I've already planted, and then I don't have to go destroy other ecosystem. So to a certain extent, maybe that's like as replenishable as you can possibly make it as far as like lumber goes. I don't really know, but still, like for the environment, like I think, you know what I'm saying? It's not ideal. I don't know. I'm not a tree scientist, so I'm not any kind of scientist. So I'm sure people know that by now.
Yeah, I don't think we're fooling anybody.
Yeah. I do wear a white coat when I record the podcast, but that's besides the point.
That'd be so weird.
Dr. Shane here.
Ew.
What?
That would just be weird.
Dr. Shane. Speaking of doctors, I saw this video. This is a segment of the podcast that we like to call Shane laughing at inappropriate and sad things. So
don't want to hear this if it's inappropriate and sad. I don't want you to tell it.
I'll let you decide. It's a video I saw about O.J. Simpson.
No, I don't want you to tell it.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, O.J. Simpson died. That's very sad.
Not a great guy.
Standing there like, see? It does.
I don't want us to have O.J. Simpson content in this episode. Like all that to be cut out, please.
No problem.
Okay. All right.
And that's how we got Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So, anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks for listening.
Wait, no, do a better outro because like, you're mumbling. Pull it together and then we'll do a good outro. A good one.
Thanks for listening. This has been Country Roads Creeps. And if you like us, you can leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcasting platform. And if you don't like us, don't do anything. And if you also like us, then you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and share our posts, and then you can help us grow the podcast. And
I'm going to start hiring someone else to do the outro because you can't do it anymore.
why?
You forget your line. I'm going to bring in Riley to do the outro every time now.
Riley?
Yeah, we're gonna call her in. She's going to connect to the thing with her phone to do the outro.
You think she would answer right now if I called her?
No.
Yeah, I bet not. Freaking Riley. She's never going to listen to this part until like it'll be like Thursday night. I'll get a text. She's like, I listened to it.
Yeah.
And you're talking a bunch of garbage about me.
Do the outro good or I'm bringing Riley in next time. Take your job.
Thanks for listening.
Horrible. You sound like Eeyore.
Thanks for listening. Be safe driving home. Watch out for the knot, dear.
Bye.
Bye.
You're fired.
What? How am I fired? First of all, you can't fire me because I quit.